Morning, everybody. So it's lovely to see you, but I can see like the front row, and that's about it. So I want to start off by talking about an issue in culture that I think we have all experienced or struggled with at some point in our lives. Now, it may just be people my age, but I guess we'll see. Because have you ever noticed how group chats can bring out both the best and the worst in us? Picture this. It's someone's birthday. You know this because you're a good friend and Facebook has warned you. And you wake up, you look at your phone, and the group chat is suspiciously quiet. And you think to yourself, will I be the first person to wish them a happy birthday? Because being the first to wish someone a happy birthday can feel like a massive win. And once you've sent that message, there's a tiny part of you that thinks, everyone saw that was me first. I care the most. And minutes later, the messages start scrolling in. Happy birthday, have a great day, hope you're spoiled. And you think to yourself, too late, too late. And you think, you didn't remember because you loved them. You remembered because I reminded you. Now, I can't be the only person who feels like that. Really hope I'm not. And that instinct to be first, to be noticed, to be slightly ahead of everyone else is how we can so often define great. That instinct to be first, to be noticed, to be slightly ahead of everyone else, to be great, can play out in different parts of our lives. We think, I'll stay late at work so my boss sees and remembers me when that promotion comes up. I'll volunteer for that role, not just to help, but because then they might ask me to do something else. I hope they notice how much I serve and then ask me to do something bigger. I'll say yes to everything because being needed makes me feel valued. I'll make sure that my opinion is heard, even if that means I talk over everyone else. And I'll post it, not to brag, but just so that everybody knows. And that instinct to be first, to be noticed, to be slightly ahead of everyone else is how we can so often define great. And Jesus, he doesn't challenge this greatness, this ambition. Rather, he defines it. He doesn't say, don't strive for greatness. He says, let me show you what greatness actually looks like. Now, today we are in the fourth part of our series titled Too Good to Miss. And the subtitle of this series is And 3 Things You Cannot Afford to Miss and How to Ensure That You Won't. And if you've missed any of these, please do not worry, because what I will say today will make sense in isolation. But of course, I would recommend you do catch up at forgechurch.com. But the premise of this series is that there are 3 things that we're convinced that we cannot afford to miss in life. Now, we've covered the first 2, and the first one was don't miss Jesus. And Steve talked about why we might miss Jesus and why we shouldn't dismiss Jesus. And the second thing that we can't afford to miss is family. And Ben spoke about how family can be one of the most rewarding things, yet one of the most challenging. He talked about how we need to accept the messy real while still aiming for God's ideal. And today, we're going to talk about the third thing you cannot afford to miss. And this potential miss determines how people experience you now and what they'll say about you later. It's don't miss great. Great. I find it a very interesting word. And I want to begin by challenging you to ask a great question, and then we'll go on to define great. And I want to ask you, what would great do? What would great do? And then to change the emphasis of that, what would great do? Because it's the doing that makes the difference. I want to ask you, what would great look like in different areas of your life? What would a great friend do? What would a great mother do? What would a great father do? What would a great husband do? What would a great wife do? What would a great son do? What would a great daughter do? And I just want to spend a moment kind of talking to the teenagers in the room at the moment, because you have a fantastic opportunity to kind of not follow the pack and simply treat your parents like other teenagers do. Just because you're young and just because you're a teenager, you have an opportunity to be great. In fact, I'll tell you a little secret, because being the eldest automatically kind of makes me great. And I'll define great in a moment, but let me tell you, if you begin to act great, then your parents might act great too. If you're great, they might start giving you privileges, and you'll realize that maybe they're not so bad after all. You can stop and you can think, before I slam that door, or roll my eyes, or badmouth my parents, what would a great 16, 17, 18-year-old do? What would a great employer do? What would a great employee do? What would a great leader do? What would great do? And if you're not a Jesus follower, can I just say that you are so, so welcome here. But if that's you, define great for yourself. Write it down and aim for it every day in every area of your life. It will make you a better husband and father, a better wife, a better son, daughter, student, leader, employer. It will make you a better everything. So just decide what great is and shoot for great. But don't miss great, because it defines how people experience you now and what they'll say about you eventually. Because greatness is not something that you achieve for yourself. It's something that others experience because of you. However, if you are a Jesus follower, you'd call yourself a Christian. Great comes defined for us. Jesus left us with a recipe. And he defines great for us in the book of Mark, which is a part of the Bible which talks all about Jesus' life. And here's what happens. Near the end of his earthly ministry, Jesus and his disciples were on their way to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover, which is a religious ceremony. As he and his 12 disciples are on their way, Jesus tells them that he will soon be arrested. He'll be condemned to death by the chief priest and handed over to the Romans. He'd be tortured, spat on, and killed. What Jesus has just said to them and what happens next is connected. And we're in Mark. It says, "Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. 'Teacher,' they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask.'" And their statement reminds me of when someone says to me, "Can you do me a favor?" And you have absolutely no idea what they're going to ask. But Jesus, because he's a smart guy, he responds with a question. He says, "What do you want me to do for you?" They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory." They're asking for positions of authority, despite the continual reminder of his suffering and his death. The disciples still thought that once they got to Jerusalem, Jesus was going to establish a political kingdom. Here, James and John are asking for positions of high status in Jesus' administration, which they thought would be installed soon. They're asking for positions of honor and authority. I mean, they're probably thinking they deserved it. They'd sacrificed so much. They'd followed Jesus faithfully. But Jesus responds with, he says, "You don't know what you are asking." When the 10 heard about this, they became indignant with James and John. The other disciples, they're angry, they're annoyed, but they weren't offended on Jesus' behalf. Rather, they were concerned that James and John would go ahead of them. So they started arguing, and Jesus, he was probably sighing and thinking to himself, they still don't get it. And he responds to his disciples with this: You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. And the Message translation, which I just find a little bit easier to understand, says this: you've observed how godless rulers throw their weight around, and when people get a little power, how quickly it goes to their heads. But this is the world that the disciples knew. These rulers, they weren't kind. They weren't servant-hearted. They used their power to take, not to give. Power meant securing more wealth, protecting your position, and pushing others down to stay on top. If you had authority, you used it, and you used it over people. So when Jesus starts talking about a kingdom, the disciples are probably nodding along, thinking, yes, Jesus, we know the system. We've been on the wrong end of it. And maybe, just maybe, they're quietly thinking, finally, it's going to be our turn. Justice is coming, and maybe even a little payback. And I think maybe this is where we can resonate with the disciples. Because don't we often settle for being known and miss out on the opportunity to be great? We know what it feels like to want to be noticed by the most powerful person in the room. To do something good, not just because it's good, but in the hope that someone sees it, comments on it, remembers our name. And maybe for some of us, that's even happened in church. We've served faithfully, but hoped it would lead to more recognition, more responsibility, more influence. And the uncomfortable truth is that sometimes we're not serving for love, we're serving for leverage. And Jesus, he doesn't shame the disciples for that instinct. He does something completely different. He shows them a better way. He doesn't say, now you get to rule like them. No, he doesn't. He says, not so with you. Not in my kingdom, not my followers. He's redefining great. He says, if you're going to be part of my kingdom, you have to quit thinking that way about earthly powers. Instead, he says, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be a slave of all. Kingdom great. Great, according to Jesus, is a race to the back of the line, not to the front. And the more influence and power we have, the faster we should be running to the back, because the greater the temptation to run to the front. We may feel like we've earned it, that we've deserved it, that we've worked hard for it, or that we're entitled to it. But Jesus is saying that status, money, recognition, popularity, that doesn't equal great. Humble service is the greatest. Self-giving sacrifice, that is the greatest. And he finishes with this. He says, for even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. That is great. Jesus giving his life, dying on the cross to forgive our sins. That is great. So Jesus, he defines great for us, but he doesn't stop there. He goes on and he shows us how to be great. In John 13, basically, Jesus has gathered all his friends together. He knows that he's going to die and that Judas is going to betray him. He says in John 13, Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power and that he'd come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. The disciples are starting to freak out. Like, what is he doing? He approached Simon Peter, who said, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you will understand." "No," says Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Peter is outraged. Jesus is his Lord. In this culture, foot washing was the job of the lowest servant, the person with the least amount of money, the least amount of value, and the least amount of power. Washing someone's feet was an extreme act of servanthood. According to the Jewish kind of law and traditions regarding the relationship between a teacher and his disciples, a teacher had no right to demand that their servant would wash their feet. It was absolutely unthinkable that a master would wash his disciples' feet. I mean, even for us, like, can you imagine if your boss insisted on making you a tea or a coffee and then afterwards was washing your mug up for you? It would feel odd. It would feel weird. And this is why Peter tells Jesus that he shall never wash his feet. Not because he doesn't love Jesus, but because it feels wrong. It feels weird. I'm just going to jump ahead a couple of verses, and basically Peter's like, yeah, okay, wash my feet. But he says, when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I've done for you?" he asked them. And this isn't a rhetorical question. Jesus knows that they've seen that their feet are washed, but he's not quite sure if they've understood it yet. He'd washed their feet, and soon after, he was going to wash away their sins. And he says to them, "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." He's telling them that he's set an example and that they are to do likewise. This is Jesus redefining greatness. He goes on and he says, "Very truly I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you'll be blessed if you do them." Notice, he doesn't say blessed if you admire this, blessed if you understand this, or blessed if you agree with this. He says blessed if you do this. Blessed if you wash others' feet. Blessed if you serve others. Jesus knew and Jesus knows that actions speak louder than words. So when he wanted to teach the proud, arguing disciples about humility, he didn't just say it, he showed it. Jesus completely flipped the cultural definition of greatness. The world says that greatness equals position, recognition, and power. But Jesus says greatness equals service. And this greatness that Jesus talks about, it isn't easy. It's costly. It takes work. For me, over recent years, I felt a real call to leadership. And as I've been praying and as I've been chatting to people, this word humility comes up again and again. And humility isn't thinking about ourselves less. Rather, it's about depending on God more. It's choosing to honor his plans above your own desires. And if I'm being honest, serving like Jesus can be really difficult. When opportunities have come my way to lead and to speak again and again, I have to remind myself, this isn't about me. It's about others, and it's about God. Because that instinct to be first, to be noticed, to be recognized, to be slightly ahead of everyone else is how we can so often define greatness. But it's why I'm so glad that Jesus redefined greatness for us. Because to Jesus, greatness is not measured by how many people notice me, or by how many people tell me that I've done a good job. Greatness looks like humbly serving the people that God has placed around me. And I have no idea who said this or where it came from, but there is this saying that says Christian leaders don't just lead from the stage, they stack chairs. And it's obviously kind of a little joke, but highlighting the fact that leadership in the kingdom of God isn't proven by microphones and platforms. It's revealed by what you're willing to do when nobody is watching. And although this saying is about leaders, I actually believe that in one sense or another, we're all leaders. Because we all have influence in areas of our lives, whether it's in the family, in our friendships, at work, at church. So this saying kind of applies to us all. And it's all about whether you're prepared to take the low place, to do the unseen job, and serve others without needing recognition. Jesus didn't just speak about greatness. He knelt down and he washed feet. It's exactly why so many people involved in the leadership team here at the Forge and many others will stack chairs each and every week, serving others not to be noticed, not for the power or for the recognition, but because they want to serve like Jesus did. It's why my dad has been serving in youth for literally forever. It's why my mum, a head teacher, stayed late at school one night and cleaned the school when the cleaner was absent. It's being on the setup team because that's a job that nobody sees. And I could go on. These people, they serve not for the recognition, not for power or for status. They serve because they know that greatness is not something you achieve for yourself. It's something that others experience because of you. And I see so many people here at the Forge who serve humbly like Jesus. Don't miss it. Don't miss great. I think this word serve can be quite a churchy word. And because of that, I think we can so often hear that Jesus served, so we should serve. And our minds instantly go to, what rota can we be on? I should serve others by joining the welcome team or the production team or the band, or I should serve in kids or youth. And all of those are fantastic. And I would 100% recommend that you do that. But I actually think we need a broader vision of service. Because Jesus did not just serve on a Sunday, and nor should we. Instead, you should see everything that you do as a service to others. If you're a builder, serve those around you. If you're in finance, serve. If you're in education, serve. If you're a full-time parent, serve. If you run your own business, serve. And by all means, in every single relationship that you're in, take a posture of service. Serve by waking up early to unload the dishwasher. Serve by doing your job with excellence, even when nobody is watching. Serve by washing your older sister's car. Really hope my brother is watching that one. Serve by listening properly instead of rushing to fix or advise. Serve by putting your phone down and being fully present. Serve by being honest and fair when maybe cutting corners would benefit you. Serve by forgiving quickly rather than keeping score. Serve by praying for people rather than talking about them behind their back. Serve by using your skills, your influence, your resources to lift others up. Serve by choosing kindness when you're tired and you have an excuse not to. Serve by taking responsibility instead of shifting blame. Serve by loving others who may never be able to repay you. Serve, because greatness is not something you achieve for yourself. It's something others experience because of you. Isn't it true that some of the happiest people that you know are some of the greatest people, if you define great according to Jesus? They're the most others first people. And isn't it also true maybe that some of the most unhappy people are those that have the most stuff? Great is greater than being famous, known, and wealthy, because we can't all be known, wealthy, and recognized, but we can all be great and happy according to Jesus. Something we often say here at The Forge is, following Jesus will make your life great and will make you great at life. And I truly believe that if we aim for greatness by Jesus' definition, we're more likely to have a great life and be great at life. At the beginning, I asked you a question. I said, what would great do? And maybe there's an area in your life that you know that you're not doing too great in for whatever reason. So let me ask you again, what would great do? What would a great friend do? What would a great father do? What would a great mother do? What would a great wife do? What would a great husband do? What would a great son do? A great daughter do? What would a great employer do or a great employee do? What would a great leader do? What would great do? Because greatness is not something that you achieve for yourself. It's something that others experience because of you.